Our next speaker is Matthijs Bos. He is professional flood risk international with Haskoning of the Netherlands, but he lives and works in Singapore, and he has been following closely the developments in Singapore around resiliency, flooding, sea level rise, and also has been following the development of the new tourist port, which is going to be one of the biggest ports in the world. Matthijs, it is midnight for you, I believe. So good evening to you and welcome.
Stas, yeah, thanks for having me on the conference. So indeed, yeah, 2 a.m. in Singapore. So happy to dial in. So yeah, so I'm Matthijs Bos. I'm working at Haskoning, a Dutch engineering firm, leading in maritime and climate resilience. So indeed, 4 years ago, I moved to Singapore to focus on climate resilience in Singapore. So today I will give an overview of actually ongoing works we are doing in Singapore, all on long-term planning, and also how Singapore is like working on that, and everything I'm showing actually also Haskoning is involved in. Yeah, so. Yeah, you can put up the slides. Yes, thank you. So actually, Singapore is really embracing a collaborative learning approach. Like they're starting to share knowledge also on what they have been learning or what actually also we as consultants bring, and also try to really engage with the public on their learnings, but also really pull the market into Singapore. As you can imagine, Singapore is rather small. Actually, there is a long-term plan with investments budgeted for like 100 billion Singapore dollar. That's like $70 billion what they want to spend over the next 50 years. The first 10 billion is already allocated. So yeah, the projects will really come soon, and also the construction companies will come soon. But of course, before you can construct something, you need to start planning, and that's how I got involved. Later also I will show a bit on how public engagement is going. And yeah, you can imagine like a lot of the projects I'm involved in are quite sensitive in terms of like detail and designs and all the background of it. So today, actually, anything I'm sharing is like based on publicly available data and data sources. So also later we can share this deck with you. Also to note is that Haskoning actively works with partners. Partners like Jacobs, like a US-based firm, and Arab, and together we bring our expertise, really bringing both the best from the companies. So yeah, we can dive into the content. So please, next slide. So again, sea level rise. Sea level rise is the threat. What Russ just mentioned, I'm actually not so much aware of. In Singapore, we work mostly with the projections that are provided by the IPCC, and then later made local to the local context by the scientists in Singapore. So actually, we work with like over 1 meter of sea level rise by 2100 and 2 meter of sea level rise by 2150, and really. These are really like active or present values that we really work with when we do all the planning. So also they say like it's not like something in the distance. They really like proactively now start working on climate adaptation. And to note, like going also to the next slide. Actually, if you look at Singapore, it's quite a low-lying island. Also, a lot of the area is reclaimed, or like reclaimed by taking like reservoirs from the sea, so to say. Also building on the edges, And yeah, you can see actually 30% is quite prone to flooding if sea level rise would come. So they say it's like an existential threat. We cannot wait. So therefore, they started on this big program. So we can go next slide. So what they've been doing, actually, they started already almost a decade ago with the first like feasibility studies, and now actually since like 4 years, really into consultancy and master planning programs. Lucky enough, like 2 out of the 4 active studies Haskoning is involved in on these master planning studies. And so today I will share some highlights of that. So as you can see, Singapore is nicely like cropped in areas where all these areas have different like priorities in terms of how they are like what is like the topology or like the terrain levels and why there is different priorities in starting in investments. But all in all, like over the next 2 decades, they want to have like island round coastal protection measures that's over 300 kilometers of coastline protection. So you can imagine that is quite some work. So next slide, some concepts, what we try to apply. So this is very high level, but what we want to do all in all, when we go into the future, is using adaptive pathways. So what we try to do is different types of ways how we can actually achieve, for instance, the protection for 1 or 2 meter sea level rise, and testing really different strategies. So either it will be flood walls, can be nature-based solutions, can be barriers, can be retreat, not for Singapore, but could be assessed. And all of these pathways, we will then test against like their cost and benefits. So we will cost them like very detailed with conceptual designs, and then quantify the benefits through flood risk modeling. On the next slide, you can see also that we really look into different economic parameters also, because they can have quite an effect on actually when you should invest, and also like to what level you should invest. So we are still like also from a policy point of view thinking of, should we actually build it on 100-year, 1,000-year, 10,000-year protection level, really finding out what is most economical, sensible for Singapore. But also seeing like if you like tune the parameters, for instance, for a discount rate or for different sea level rise projections or inflation rates, actually it can change your way of looking at this as well. And also it can change, like you could consider like I built something today, but I could maybe build, for instance, a dike. I only built it for like 1 meter sea level rise, and then imagine that if really 2 meter sea level rise is to occur, then only, let's say, in 50 or 100 years time, I start to build my next 1 meter of defense. So all these kind of assessments we actually have been doing to really show to the government what is the best way forward. So now moving on to some of the project highlights. So this is like from the newspaper, from the Straits Times, where you can see quite some schematics on what's going on. I will go in more detail later. So I will tell you a bit on the Great and Southern Waterfront, which is currently a port area, the Long Island and the Southwest Coast, what Stas mentioned on Tuas and the Jurong Port area. So here what you can also see, so this is also a bit on the public engagement. So this was in the newspaper. This is actually our conceptual design, where you can see like barriers, and you can see flood walls, and you can see quite nice artist impressions also for the people to appreciate what we are doing. So on the next slide, So here is that barrier. So actually, it's like closing off, or it could close off like the water body behind it. And yeah, as you can imagine, yeah, it's really there only, it should only close when really the storm is coming. And for the other time of the year or years, actually, you have open access to sea for vessels to maneuver. But what you can also see, there's like a bridge on top. So actually, there is a very high desire from the government to make like another crossing from like the one island to the other island for like people to really use like both sides of the islands. So in the end of the day, what did we do? We really like led the design, conceptual design of this barrage of barrier scheme, and looked into what is like the type of barrier you would want, what are type of gates actually are applicable for such design. So we started off, for instance, with these vertical lift gates, and then the government said, these are so ugly. Why did you even bring this forward? So actually now you can see a very gentle design that fits in the environment. So now also the environmental studies start to really also scrutinize this design, and will go into next design stages. So this one is on Long Island. Perhaps you heard of it in the news. So in front of the city East Coast Park, they are planning for 800 hectare land. So yeah, again, like land reclamations, but also really, especially to also be able to store all the discharge and runoff that comes from the island, to create a lake for fresh water that they can use for potable water, drinking water. So what is special on this? Again, it's a mega project. So actually, also the conceptual design was done by us, but also now the construction planning is already starting, and over the next 2 decades, this is gonna be built. So we were involved here also in the reclamations, the coastal defense, barriers, and pumping station. So here you can, next one, you can see like artist impression of how this should look like. So again, also to show to the public, like it will not become that ugly as it looks at just like a plan view. They really try to create also new amenities for the public where they can go in their free time, and really also try to persuade everyone with that. Also, like on the next slide, you can imagine there is, of course, a sea-facing coastal defense. So there are different ways, of course, how you can design this. So also we are showing to the government, like if you would just only build a pure like coastal defense with like armor rock, or like very like bold sea defense, then actually maybe you miss out the opportunity also to create new habitats. So we're also showing references of projects also in the Netherlands, where Haskoning also designed like, but like, what if you would create actually habitats in front of such a coastal defense, then you can actually integrate a coastal defense with creation of habitats. So that's what you see in the next slide. So here actually it's the same setup, but then we built like a foreshore, or actually planning to build a foreshore, because the project just started in the Netherlands, where they build like a kind of a perch beach on the seafront, and a beach in between, where actually you can have like a kind of an intertidal area where fishes can go, and also grass and sand can be accommodated. So these kind of also so these kind of solutions we also try to show to them. On the next slide, also again something from the Netherlands. This project has just been finalized for the past almost 8 years or so. This was ongoing in the Netherlands. This is at the Afsluitdijk. It's like our biggest barrier and dike, over 30 kilometers long, protecting the hinterland. But like it is over 100 years old, so it needed a upgrade. So actually they did the upgrade in the same, like in the present condition, and just added other features to it. So they actually built in the existing dike a pumping station of 300 meter cube per second. That's like over 10,000 feet per second. And they built big tidal gates next to the existing ones. So all in that in an active structure. So I put some next slide, some cross sections in that you can also have an appreciation of the scale, where you see these big pumps, like a single pump of 50 meter cube per second, which is pumping the water from the lakes into the sea. But you can also see in the Netherlands, you might know that we have high safety standards or flood protection standards. So here actually we designed, this contractor designed for 3 gates to actually have a reliability. So then we move forward. So back again to the flood map and the last case. So it's on the southwest coast. So that is on the bottom left corner. Actually, the island in the middle you can see actually would also be like flooded with sea level rise. But what you can see here is that actually the whole edge of the waterfront is prone to flooding. So now the project is like, what are we gonna do? So next slide will show you like actually the ambition. So Tuwas was already mentioned. Actually, there are a number of ports in the blue and the right. So Pasir Panjang, Brani terminals, city terminals. So these are all existing active ports. So they all container terminals or like a row. So they are all active, but actually Singapore is very forward-looking. So all of these ports are actually being planned to move to the orange part, the Tuas port. So they will could free up that land and build like a new residential and commercial and touristic areas. So this whole operation is being planned and is actually already put in motion. But to that, you can also see that still that island, that Jurong Island, you can see in the picture, and the water edge I just showed, that's the Jurong part, actually is still in the middle of it. So looking at the next slide. So they're actually saying like, but actually, what should we do with that area? Because actually, it's a little bit low-lying. As I said, it's prone to flooding when there is sea level rise. So actually, should we then consider to defend that because of course of the economic importance? It's an active port. Petrochemical companies are there. All the shipyards Singapore is famous for. So all of that is there. So they asked us to study like what is the feasibility of constructing 2 barriers or barrages in the yellow rectangle boxes, so on the left and east side of these channels. So if you would do that, then of course you would close off like the channels, and but you can protect actually the area behind it in one go by just shorten the coastline. So in this study, took the past 3 years, we assessed like, but if you would close it off, what then would be the hydraulic behavior of such a system? And actually, if you close off, then can you still operate your ports in an efficient manner? So also a lot of stakeholder consultation with like the port has been involved. Um, in the end of the day, we assess like, so what if you would build like a storm surge barrier that you then could close only during storm surge seasons, so maybe once every few years, or if you would build it like with a lock and gate system, and have it closed always, but having locks to have ships passing through. So you can imagine that both of these are quite disruptive for the port. So there's still a lot of hesitation on either of these solutions. So also like in the next study, they will call tender probably next month or in January. Then they want to study like these two alternatives together with just traditional onshore solutions. And they will take like all the recommendations we gathered from the feasibility study into that study. So and lastly, Stas mentioned to the TUAS port. So I have some facts. So actually now all these city ports, they will move to the TUAS port. Also already for the TUAS port, they have like a long-term view. So actually they will build that on a sufficient high level. So actually they do not need to come back like in the next few decades. And already parts of it is already operational, and like but then when everything is moved from like the city terminals to this port, then it's like 65 million of TEU that they can handle. So quite an impressive amount. So lastly, I want to show you about some public engagement. So this is like an exposition. It's called the Rising Tides. You can also find about it on internet. So this was organized by the Public Utilities Board, so the government agency that is driving all of this. And so this picture, actually, this exposition is in the middle of like one of the most famous shopping malls. So you can imagine that everyone on a Saturday goes for shopping, then suddenly is just exposed to all of our nice work. So actually, it was very, very well visited by like all of the public in Singapore. And also like one more slide. So there was really like engaging in like lots of activities for kids, but also you can see like whole of the community and the experts could come together. And also showing like there is some message from LinkedIn saying like what the government is aiming to do. So all in all, Singapore, I think they are quite thriving on how to challenge and respond to climate change and try to adapt. Luckily, they have also the capacity and the funds, and they're really trying to pull in the market to actually bring it to them too. And so I'm at least here for another 2 years, and we'll see what the world brings us next. So thank you for your time.
Hughes, thank you very much. And one of the issues that got raised in a discussion that we had about Texas and the coastal spine was the concern that when the gates closed, that wouldn't be helpful because sometimes rain accumulates in the Houston area from the bayous, and you want to get that water out rather than having it jammed in. So you have a two-way concern. Sometimes the storm is coming from the sea, and then you want to block it out like you do with the Maislan-Kiring. And then other times you want that water to go through. Was there a discussion in Singapore about two-way water flows and flood flows?
Definitely. So especially the rainfall in Singapore is also even more intense than for instance in Houston. So actually also that really made like the one solution more preferred than the other. So like indeed, if you would close a barrier like the storm surge barrier as we have in Rotterdam, then actually you have quite a slow system to close, and then suddenly you have a basin that is locked. And then when the rain comes in with quite a big catchment, in this case for this port, then suddenly your water rapidly could rise by 3 meters easily. We also showed like actually such a system would not be practical for this system, and therefore like we have like the pros and cons for either system. But you can also imagine like a lock system, having a lock is maybe also not so beneficial. So in the end of the day, these three systems need to be laid out all together, and a government decision has to be made with all the pros and cons together.
Okay. And the Tuis port, they designed that port with the elevation to take into account a 2 meter rise. Is that correct?
At least 1 meter, and they could further adapt. But like at least 1 meter they took into account. Yeah.
Okay. And you referenced with Long Island that you're actually creating a barrier and a lake at the same time. Is that correct?
So a barrier to the barrier also to control. So to either with the rain. So when too much rain comes in, then you can either you have the possibility to spill again, and also like a pump if even is the seawater is too high, so you cannot spill and you need to pump.
Okay. I'm opening this up for questions for other people. This is a very interesting presentation and analysis, Matthijs. It's very forward thinking, and Singapore seems to be doing many of the same things that the Netherlands did, and the expense. I mean, to build a port with a 65 million TEU capability, it is pretty intense. Where does Singapore have that kind of money? Yes. You're saying yes, it does.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. I see Brad Benson from Port of San Francisco has a question. Brad, unmute yourself. Please ask your question.
Matthijs, great presentation. We also had a presentation from the Singapore group when they visited San Francisco, and I remember feeling extremely jealous about the certainty that they had about funding. So there was sort of a national level decision that they were going to set aside enough to make this happen, and that's off the table as a question. So
yeah,
it's really great. Just thinking about the scenario work that you did, you showed one slide that, I think you were looking at an inflation scenario. Could you talk a little bit more to that? I mean, were you, as part of those scenarios, were you looking at costs of overall implementation based on different inflation scenarios? Did you arrive somewhere at a recommendation about the speed with which they should try and implement something this large in order to manage costs? Can you just share a little bit more about that? Thank you.
So indeed, mostly it's also related to help them understand, like, should you build now like everything, or should you do it incrementally? So just enough to prevent you from your first risk what you see today. So because some parts are just like old and really need some upgrade, because they are just there for like 50 years or so, maybe sometimes also settled. So there at least definitely something needs to happen. But like, do you need to do it in one go for like 2 meter sea level rise? And actually, a lot of the times the answer is like no. And like doing all these kind of economic analysis can actually prove that or substantiate that. And that's actually where this analysis comes in. And then also showing like that sensitivity, like even though if you would go for like a very high or like still reasonable high inflation rate, then still you can come to a similar conclusion. And that is what we try to assess. Yeah. and yeah, to maybe especially like things for like flood walls, embankments, and so on, it's quite or relatively easy to build them incrementally, like every 30, 50 years, and then extend. But do note, like these big like tidal gates, barrages type of structures, for sure you want to build them high enough at once, because these are like difficult difficult structures to build, a lot of concrete, so better build them high enough. So 1 meter high for concrete, if you already need to go 30 meters deep in the sea, that's maybe not that more expensive.
Very good. Matthijs, are you using AI at all in terms of your projections or your sea level projections, or doing this with the
Like
cost benefit?
we really just rely on the government. So actually, it's mandated here by government which scenarios to use. So we don't challenge that, or we just work with that.
Okay. Anybody else with a question? Going once, going twice. Matthijs, thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Very forward-thinking, gives us a lot to think about. And thanks for putting that up, Todd. So we've got that. This is really great. Thank you for being up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Of course. For you, I do that.
Okay. And we hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck.
Okay. Okay, folks, we are actually at our break time. So we are going to break for 15 minutes, and we will come back in 15 minutes. So let's say 10 minutes before the hour. And that will give everybody a chance to take a breath. And then we are going to start with our California ports reports. Christine Zortman, Executive Director, Port of Redwood City. Brad Benson, who you already heard from, Waterfront Resilience Program Director, Port of San Francisco. Colleen Leong, Environmental Programs and Planning, Port of Oakland. And Adrian Newbold, Assistant Chief Harbor Engineer, Port of Los Angeles. We will be back at 10:50. Thank you.